Hey guys, so today we're going to take everything that we've done so far in terms of this sort of series of pixel art school supplies, and we're going to put them all together to form an animation. There are a lot of skills that go in with animation that are not in the same sphere as graphic design. But in recent years, the sort of two disciplines, animation and design, have been kind of merging together, especially with the advent of web ads. Most web ads you see are going to have some semblance of animation in them, even if it's very small, just simple motion, something that's non-static. It's worth knowing some simple animation tricks. So for this, we're going to be using Adobe After Effects. There are other programs that you can use to animate things. Photoshop is one of them. But in this case, I think it's just easier just to put everything into After Effects, and we'll kind of go from there. The way we're going to do this is we're going to set up an Illustrator document, and we're going to import the Illustrator document into After Effects. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take away my little background for my backpack that I made, and one by one I'm going to drop in these new things, and we're going to put them on new layers. So I'm going to grab my little backpack document here, and I'm going to place two new layers, three new layers, one for each little artifact here. And so I'm going to grab my notebook, Control C, and just make sure it's on a new layer here. Here's this on one layer, and then I'll grab my little ID tag here, Control C, come back over here, place it on a different layer. I could shrink that down some to fit it in, maybe like a little bit smaller. We always say, once you get home at the end of the day, take your ID and clip it to your backpack. That way you'll remember it when you come back tomorrow. And finally with the pencil, Control C, and different layer, Control V. It's up to you whether or not you want to rename the layers, but if you do want to rename the layers, it's a simple matter of just simply double clicking. And I'll leave the background blank for now, and I'll go ahead and save this as something different. I'll call this one Animation Base Backpack. And then we'll go ahead and open up After Effects. I'll close this out. Once your After Effects is open, we can go ahead and make a new project, and we'll make a new composition. I'll make my composition frame 500 pixels wide and 500 pixels tall. Make sure that you have this lock aspect ratio unchecked if it has a preset on there already. That way you can sort of adjust these independently of one another. I'll make my frame rate 60 frames a second. That tends to be the general frame rate when it comes to online advertisements or online or animations. I'll keep my resolution full for now. It shouldn't be too much of a tax on my processor here. And I'll make my duration maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 seconds. So we've got hours, minutes, seconds, and then frames. So I'll make it 5 seconds. So 0, 5, and then we put a little colon here, and make sure we put 0, 0 at the end too, just to make sure that they know that this 5 means seconds. The background color, once again, is always going to be just a simple placeholder. There's nothing there. We'll have to add in our own background once we get done. Press OK. And now we've got about 5 seconds left up here. In order to bring in our animation, we want to just double click and then find wherever you saved your project. So I'll find my animation base backpack here. And I'll import that. I'll make sure the import kind is set to composition, and I'll just go ahead and keep the footage dimensions the layer size, which will allow each of the little individual layers to be the same size they were as before, so that way we can sort of resize them easier. The little bounding box will be easy to resize here. I'll drag the backpack down first, and I'll go ahead and resize this. I'll zoom in by rolling up with the mouse wheel. We can just tuck this right into the center here. If you're not looking at what I'm looking at, I'm going to go here to Window and go to Workspace and then hit Default, and then it will set me back up with all this right here. I'll center this vertically in the artboard, but horizontally I'll drag it a little bit more towards the bottom. Not all the way down to the bottom. I'll leave a little space there. Once you've got that, I'm going to go ahead and drag in my notebook. I'll make sure my notebook is small enough to fit inside the canvas here. Hold down Shift while we resize this. I want to make sure it's about the same size as this little opening that we made here. And I'm going to position this right here inside the notebook, or like inside the boundaries of the notebook. And then I'm going to go over here to my layer, and I'm going to create a new shape layer. And I'll create a little rectangle that covers this entire notebook here. And it doesn't matter what color it is at this moment. You can just make sure that it's the same size as your notebook. But I'm going to place it right over here above the little opening there. And then I'm going to make this notebook sort of interact with this red square by clicking on the notebook itself. Make sure I have the track mat options visible. If you don't see those, just hit over here where it says toggle switches and modes, and then you can see this little track mat there available, and I'll just click on that and say alpha mat shape layer 1. That way now when I move this by hitting P for position, it'll just sort of appear as if it's kind of coming out of the notebook here. So I'll create a couple of keyframes here. I'll hit a keyframe by hitting this little stopwatch for position. I'll just click once there. I'll go forward, say for instance, maybe a half a second, maybe 1 second here. I'll go for half a second. And I'll just drag it upwards by moving the Y value right there, have it kind of pop out of the notebook there. And then I'll just let it hang there for another half a second or so. Make my keyframe right there, and then I'll just bring it back down through another half second here. So we can kind of watch this in a second. We'll just watch this. Up, down. There we go. Cool. All right, and we can have that go as fast or as slow as you want. I think I'll stick with that for now. All right, next what we'll do is we'll drag down the pencil. We'll do the same thing with the pencil. We'll have it sort of appearing out of the sort of front pocket here. So let's go ahead and just shrink this down to be about the same size as that front pocket. The yellow is going to help it pop out of this really well. Let's drag this inwards. Okay, there we go. So it's sort of sitting there. We're gonna have it kind of. I'm gonna have it be off to the side, so I'm gonna have room for my ID. What I'll do now is I'll just once again go up to Layer, New Shape Layer. I'll drag another rectangle over this pencil. Make sure it's at least as long as the pencil, if not longer. And then I'll move it upwards, right about here. We'll do the same thing we did with the pencil as we did with the notebook here. We'll grab this. We'll make sure the track mat is set to alpha mat shape layer 2 in this case. And then what we'll do is we'll hit some position keyframes here. We can just align these position keyframes with the other ones. So we'll just make the position keyframe start here. We'll advance forward by clicking this little arrow, and we'll drag the Y value up. So it sort of hits right there. Right? And then we'll go forward another one. Let this rest for a second, and then we'll bring it back down. Make sure it doesn't go too far, because we want the sort of speed to be a little consistent here. Up and down. There we go. Cool. Let's grab all these right here, and let's hit F9 on the keyboard just to smooth out the animation, so it sort of hovers and then goes back down. That's nice. Let's watch this whole thing. Up, down. Cool. So there they are. There's your school supplies. All right. Lastly, what we'll do is we'll grab our ID. We'll just drag the ID down above everything else. We'll shrink it down to size. Hold down Shift while we do it. We'll place it over here on the corner so it doesn't interfere with the pencil. Right, it shows up there. And then what we can do here is we can actually maybe make it a little rotation keyframe here. Let's hit R on the keyboard, and let's click our rotation right here. Let's actually, before we do that, go over here to our anchor point tool. This is little kind of like dotted rectangle with a little compass rose on the inside, or you press Y on the keyboard. And let's go ahead and move our anchor point to the top where it lines up with this little clip here. And that way, by clicking our little rotation keyframes, we can rotate it to the left, say, by moving it forward to, say, for instance, like 20 degrees. We'll just have it go forward. We'll go forward to maybe halfway through, say, for instance, like 1 second and 45 frames, and we'll have it go over to the other side. -20. Then we'll come back to this right here, and we'll go back to 20. So now we can kind of watch them all come in and come out. And let's go ahead and just F9 smooth this out here. Okay, cool. All right, so let's have everything loop. We'll just Alt click on this, and then we'll just click on the little. So when you Alt click on your little stopwatch, it's going to bring in your expressions, and we're going to add an expression by clicking on the little arrow here, and we're going to click Property Loop Out Duration, which will allow this to just continue to spin or continue to wobble back and forth here. And just by clicking on this little text here, Control C, we can apply this to each one of these in turn. Control V, Control C, Control V. Cool. Now let's watch everything repeat itself over the course of the next 5 seconds. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And then there's a little repeat at the very end there. That's fine. Let's see if we can't get it to... Let's find, say, a moment where they all kind of go down right about, say, here. And we'll just sort of end our animation right about there. And here, so... right, that way it'll continuously repeat here. There'll be no interruption to the animation. There we go. Cool. Awesome. You've probably heard before that graphic design is in and of itself a mode of communication. The idea is that we're using design, we're using visual elements to see if we can express something, some form of communication in some way that's going to allow our message to be more well understood, more easily understood. So in this case, I want there to be like a little message that kind of pops up here. It doesn't have to be very, very big. It just has to be something that lets us understand what we're trying to say. In this case, I want you to know, hey, bring your school supplies. Okay, so I'm going to real quick select everything I have here. Right click on it. I'm going to hit this button that says pre-compose, which is going to allow us to just group everything together and kind of clean up our timeline here. I'm going to call this backpack animating, and then what we'll do is we'll just make a new text layer here, and I'm going to choose a font I found off of dafont.com. It's called 04B, I want to say. Here we go, 04B, and I'll just click over here once anywhere, and I'll just put, don't forget your school supplies. And I'll keep that centered there. And with my little backpack animating, I'll pull this off to the side here. Now we can do a number of things to animate this. I think the easiest thing would just be go over here to effects and presets and just find an animation preset. Just find our presets here, and then find text, and then just find an animate in that you like. I'm going to choose fade up words. Obviously, if you wanted to look a little bit different, you can. This is just not really about text animation in After Effects. This is more about how we're going to add something to our little design that we made here. With that done, what we'll do is we'll probably let this hang out for a second. I might give this a little less time. I'll maybe have it come in at about a second long. So I'm going to have it animate out. I'm just going to find my little 3D text, or not 3D text, I'll find my animate out thing here. Let's have slide out by word. I'll just pop that on here. And we can see our keyframes here. This is U on the keyboard, just to get all the keyframes visible. And we can watch it, how it goes. There we go. Slide out by word. There we go. Cool. And we'll just have this go towards the end here. So it slides out completely by the end of it all. And that way gives it a second for us to kind of see what's happening here. So let's take a look at how this looks. Don't forget your school supplies. And then... Alright, cool. So there we go. Alright, so there you go. We have a little entrance and exit. Now, this is all we need for our, little animation here. It just gives us a chance to have things repeat, and then the words come in, the words go out, and that way we have a sort of a 5-second GIF that we can use. So recall that I said that this little gray thing here is just a simple placeholder. There's nothing there, really. If we were to export this as a video, all we would see is simple black. And if we don't want to see black, we got to add ourselves a little solid color in the background. Let's go to Layer, New Solid, and let's just find any color that might fit. This orange could work, but it might blend in with that brown there, so I might choose something a little more reddish, or maybe a little more pink. If you want to find so I'll just put it in any color that you like here, and this magenta solid is fine. The white doesn't show up all that well, so the easiest way to kind of go about that is just to real quick right-click on this and find Layer Styles. And you can find a variety of things like a stroke or a drop shadow. The drop shadow works really well there, so just don't forget your school supplies. And then there it goes. Whee! Alright, so there we go. We're going to go ahead and export this. So let's go to File, Export, and what we'll do is we'll go to Add to Media Encoder Queue, which will bring this up. Once that's available, you can click inside this little blue text, and you can place this on a folder that you like. For instance, in this case, I'm going to put my downloads, and I'll call this one Backpack animation. And then I'll press this little green triangle here to go ahead and let that export. Okay, so let's take a look at this as an MP4. Oh, that's good. Alright, so in order for it to really work as a web ad, we need to make sure it's some sort of a image. We don't want there to be like an actual video playing. We want a simple image that's repeating, so the best way of doing that is to open up Photoshop. So let's go here and open up Photoshop. So once you see the little splash page here, we're going to go over here to File, Import, Video Frames to Layers. And let's find our animation backpack here, Backpack Animation 1 that I just chose. And we'll just go from beginning to end, and let's think here. So it's 60 frames a second. 60 times 5 is 300, so 300 frames all told should be fine. I want to say the limit is 500 frames for these GIFs here. Okay, we'll go over to File, Export, It's already 500 by 500, so if I go to Save for Web Legacy, I should see good. That's a good size for a GIF right there. And I'll go ahead and press save once the wheel stops spinning. Press save, and we'll call this backpack GIF. And once it's done, it'll go away, and I can find my backpack GIF right here. There it is. Cool. Now, if you're a student in my class, I would like you to submit this in your little Dropbox there. Otherwise, have fun with it and make it your own. All right. Well, can't wait to see you guys produce. I'll see you all in class.